Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Date with Diversity. For those of you that are new, my name is Steph and I'm your host. And for everyone that is returning, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. So today's date is a very exciting one. I have my first official guest speaker on today, which is the lovely Romany. She founded her modelling agency, which is called Rare Select Models, back in 2017. And some of her models have gone on to work for big brands like Prada, Paul Smith, and have been featured in magazines like Vogue Italia. So exciting stuff. She's putting people on. So welcome, Romany. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. So I guess a good starting point would be for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what your background is, and kind of your journey that led to you starting Rare in the first place.
Back in 2017, 5 years ago, celebrating our 5th year this year.
Whoop, whoop.
I started second year of uni at University of the Arts London.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a budding photographer. I had just really put my foot into the creative industry and really was trying to explore it in many different avenues. At uni, I studied photography, web design, videography, and blog writing. So I was just a creative person as a whole, but photography was definitely something that I lent towards the most. Coming from an African background where you have loads of family members at family events, I would love to take pictures when I was younger of my family having fun and my friends and portraits. So that's something that I extended all the way to university. So when I was at uni, shooting and posting my work on Instagram, that was like a mini portfolio for me, and Instagram was becoming a thing for sure back then. People would DM me, message me, email me and say, hey, I love your work, can you shoot our latest lookbook, our campaigns? Even people at university who were doing lookbooks, Central St. Martin's, which comes under the umbrella of UAL. They would ask if I could shoot some of their lookbooks for uni courses, etc. So people were, knowing my work, small. And I would definitely see on shoots, on set, there wasn't a diverse range of models. There wasn't anyone who looked like me. I'd be the only black person on set. And I noticed it wasn't at the forefront of my mind, but it was something that I really took on board with me. And at that time, second year, was starting to write lengthy essays. We'd look at different media outlets, platforms, and they'd want us to analyze how different forms of media such as billboards, magazines, TV, photography would reach a targeted audience. How they would speak to an audience, market to an audience, and obviously being someone who's of colour, that was something to talk about in my essays. Okay, well, actually personal, on set, when I've been shooting something, I've not seen someone who looks like me, and again, that's not reflected in different adverts that I see and internalize every single day on the TV. So then I was thinking, okay, well, I'm saying this, I'm writing this, and I'm experiencing this. Is there a way to change this? Is there a way to actually make something more enriching to people who look like me? And I do feel like it comes from a place of enriching content with different cultures, different perspectives, and that doesn't come from one person, one place, one culture. Even though we do live in a westernized society, it is very multicultural. So and my mum's a lawyer, so she definitely is, growing up, she said your voice alone can definitely bring about a change. If you think the same, if you think one way, there are other people that think the same. So as time went on, I would try and seek people who wanted to be models, parties. I would see my friends, and this friend would be like, oh, this person trying to be a model, she applied to this agency and she wasn't scouted or wasn't signed because she was too tall, she was too dark, she was curvier than your average model, still slender, but black people, we have a bum, we have thighs. So that instantly made you too curvy. Even if you were like this, you were a P. So and then over time, over a few months, I would have a a roster of friends who were trying to be models, and on my next shoot I would try and push, you know, I felt like I was sneaking in a model, like, oh, maybe there's this model, you know, who you've not thought about who could be in that campaign, in that shoot. I would have friends who were basically signed to me. It was very organic. It was, okay, Romany, you know, she's always shooting, she might be able to get us our next job. And again, having a mum who was a lawyer, I would say, okay, should my friend be paid for this? Like, how does that work? They can't be doing free shoots all the time, which they were doing. And especially I would hear other models talking about how they even got their expenses covered. Okay, this model hasn't got her expenses covered. Well, I'll go on with that. Do you know what I mean? And now we have Select models. From me as a baby, 19, 20, really trying to instill change from an innocent way. You know, I wasn't trying to be this figurehead. I just wanted people to understand that there is a wide variety of people you can choose from to be in your campaign, to be, you know, in your lookbook.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I think that's really good. It's really good to speak, because I think, especially like in the modelling industry and the fashion industry, because I'm currently doing my master's in fashion business, so it's like something that we look at, or like something I'm interested in. So it's interesting to hear how you kind of were trying to bridge the gap between an industry that is predominantly white with, like, you know, slim models, and you're trying to change that. And I think that's amazing, because you can't, especially with modelling and fashion, everyone that is on that runway should mimic and look like the people that will be buying those clothes or who interact with that brand, right? Exactly. So it's like, if you don't do that, then you're missing out a whole market of people. Sure. So I think it's really good that you're actually being like a champion for change. I know you said that wasn't like necessarily in your life plan, but I feel like when things like this come about organically, that's like the best way. Definitely. So of course you kind of started Rare because you saw that there was a lack of diversity. Not only in skin tone, but also in body type. So what is it about diversity that's important to you, and why do you feel that it needs to kind of be like the backbone of your business and your brand?
In terms of inclusivity and diversity being important to me, I feel like it definitely comes from a personal experience of being black, and being of colour in an environment that wasn't always accepting of me and my family. I grew up in West London. You know, it's not something that I carry on my shoulders, but it's definitely something that I've noticed and felt that there could be improvement in the way people interact with, you know, visual stimulants such as, you know, magazines and even Instagram, social media. People interact with what they know and believe is safe.
Right.
And for so long that has been seeing models who only look one way, and that's the beauty standard, and that's something that we should all live by. And that doesn't include a large majority of people, whether it's heights, you know, body type, unable-bodied people, queer people, people of different complexions. Doesn't even matter about race per se, just if you're a different complexion. It's what we see. It is very varied, and we're such a varied society. I think it's something that just should have been so important from way back. So yeah, I think before it was a buzzword to say being inclusive and being diverse, it's definitely something that I, as a business owner, wanted to champion from an authentic place, because I'm black, and I, you know, didn't see myself, and I wanted to see myself. I thought, why not? I'm not saying that I should be a model, God forbid.
I mean, you are very tall. Romany's very tall, guys. She's like 5'9", almost 5'10". So she definitely could be a model, but
yeah, it's something that I thought, as a photographer behind the camera, I want to see in front of the camera people that look like myself and other people that I interact with daily.
So kind of bouncing off of your photography work, everyone, I did stalk Romany before we did this little interview. She's an amazing photographer. She's worked for people like Ray Black, Ella Air, all those amazing artists that we all have grown to love. Yeah. So we all, again, talk about inclusivity and diversity. But I think a massive problem at the moment in the industry is actually the people behind the camera mimicking, again, society. So whether that's hairstylists, makeup artists, tech, photographers, we always hear stories, I always hear stories on Instagram of like models where they've turned up to a shoot and they have to do their own makeup, for example, because the makeup artist that they've hired is not qualified to do darker complexion, so they end up looking real ashy, and it's like no one wants that. We want to have the melanated glow. So with your experience with photography and like being behind shoots and things, would you say that that's still a problem in terms of kind of diversity?
I think it's improving. I think we shouldn't turn our heads to the improvement that we have been seeing and people talking about it and coming to social media. I love TikTok at the moment for a lot of models like Leomi Anderson and you know, other models or even artists talking about their experience and just, you know, we're not hating on teams. We're just trying to bring in something that allows for the end product to be top tier, you know? So there's nothing wrong with having people who are, I saw a post and it said stop qualifying makeup artists who don't know how to do darker skin tones, and like I said, that can be reflected in any race, doesn't have to be Black, Asian, South Asian, East Asian. There are a lot of people who have different skin tones that need to have the right support. I find like on set it should be support. If you don't have someone who knows how to do your hair or do your makeup or even style you in a way that makes you look like, you know, you're not an outcast and no one's really tended to you. It's about support and feeling like your people want you to be there. So I find that it is improving. People talking about it is necessary. We should never think, okay, we've seen that video once, that's it, we know. It's like, no, you know, we've grown up with learning about other people's cultures for donkey's years. And now when it's our turn to talk about our culture and how we need to be represented in a way that's, you know, in its best form, we should, you know, continue to talk about it.
And I think going off of the point of representation, again, I'm coming from a fashion perspective, but I don't know if you're familiar with the Marc Jacobs show that happened in 2016, and he used all white models, but they had dreadlocks and there were no Black models there. So he caused a lot of controversy because you can't take from a culture and not appreciate or like, you know, acknowledge the fact that, oh, I've taken influence from the Rastafarianism way of living, or, you know, wherever you've taken that from. And I think a lot of the time, as much as like fashion and the industry, we've come a long way, but I feel we still have a long way to go in terms of sometimes things feel very tokenistic, like, oh yeah, you can go to New York Fashion Week, oh yeah, but half the models were like ethnic minorities, but in actuality, like in your actual campaigns, are you doing that, or is it just because it's Fashion Week, you know? For sure. And I think that's why you're performative. It's performative, right? So I think that's why your business, your brand, your agency is really important, and we need it because it's you kind of act in a way as a middleman to these brands. So it's like, okay, I actually genuinely want to be more diverse and inclusive. Who can I go to? Oh yeah, Rare Select Models. Like, I know that they've got me, you know? So I think it's really, really good that you're doing what you're doing, because there's definitely like a gap in the market for it, rather than just being, or just giving opportunities to the same type of person. Because like I said in my first episode, talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't, right? So you need to make sure, just as people, it doesn't matter like where you come from, what your race is, what you believe in, you should really want to be that champion of change and provide the opportunity for everyone, because not everyone, you know, has that opportunity, and there's so many talented people out there in the world. I guess another thing I want to touch on then is kind of entrepreneurship and the whole funding side of it, because we know that I'm trying to start my own business, and that's kind of my biggest barrier at the moment, funding. And I was reading a report the other day, which was done by Extend Ventures, and it was actually quite shocking what I found. So they did a study between 2009 and 2019, and they found that only 0.24%, I repeat, 0.24% of businesses that were funded were black. Wow. 0.24%. And of that, only 0.02% were black women. Wow. So it's insane that we're not really given the opportunities to start our business. Yeah. Like others, you know, like I think it said in the same post, 140 white women businesses were funded to one black woman. Basically, that was really bad. But the ratio is really off, basically. Yeah. So my question to you is, how did you fund your business? Did you have family help? Did you save? What was your kind of process with that?
Yeah, so, I mean, going off the stats that you've said, it isn't a surprise, really, because I felt that internally. I felt like I couldn't apply for funding. I felt like my business wasn't legitimate enough to be able to apply for funding and go through that process. I felt like I didn't have the tools to be able to know how to apply. Yeah. And I also felt like if I tried to ask the people who were in charge of the funding application process, how would I apply? What do I need to do? I feel like I wouldn't be taken seriously and think, oh, okay, that person doesn't know what she's doing, so what's the point of even... That's how I felt. I'm not saying that was the case, but that's definitely how I felt. I was at uni, second year, so when I started Rare, I had no money. I was living off loan, which I used to travel with. Should have said that.
It's fine. It's real,
you know, I get that culture. You know, I did media communication, so I used it. You know,
no, but you used it for your educational purposes.
I did go to Berlin to, you know, use that money to see different photographers. So, but yeah, so I didn't have a penny to my name to start a business. It was something that did take hard work and dedication to be able to do things on my own, because that's all I had grown up with. As a black, you know, female, you do things on your own. Yeah. You seek your family, and if your family aren't able to help you, you do things by yourself. So it wasn't until the pandemic, when my office was in a borough, that had funding available for small businesses. Wow. So, and the borough that I grew up in was a borough that definitely looked at minority founders or owners of businesses, minority backgrounds. So that was something that was definitely like, okay, there's something here that says it includes me, so let me try. And I was able to get funding.
Amazing. To
cover my business expenses for 6 months. So that was really, really beneficial for me, especially in the pandemic, where I wanted Rare to keep going. I wanted Rare to still have foundations. Like many other businesses, you know, they're not here today. Large businesses like Debenhams weren't able to withhold the pandemic. So I found it really necessary to look for funding, because I thought Rare had such an important ethos to spread to different parts of London, country, the world. And I just felt like, okay, now's the time to invest in myself and learn how to apply for funding. And it wasn't easy, but like I said, I saw a funding scheme that said it was open to minority background founders, business owners, and I was able to get funding. But I do feel like there are barriers for people of colour, for sure. And those barriers are put in place by people who aren't from a background like mine.
So with the funding then, did you kind of have like a mentor? Did they provide you with someone that helped you with the process, or did you still have to kind of just completely do it on your own?
I still did it on my own. I don't know if that's a pride thing. I am a Leo. Like I did tell you, Leos are very proud people. Our animal is the lion, so we do things by ourselves. But I did ask my mum. She applied for funding back in the day when she started a consultancy firm. Nice. But luckily with this funding scheme, I just had to give in my expenditures, my monthly overheads for the next 6 months, and then they would dedicate and allocate. It was kind of like you will get funding because you're in this borough and you do have a small business and you are from a minority background. Right. I feel like the people in place who put that scheme together were most likely from a minority background themselves, which is great. And I do remember speaking to someone called Farouk. So, not to generalize, but I do feel like he was from a minority background,
yeah.
or you know, an ethnic background. So in that respect, I can only thank God that I didn't have to really go above and beyond for a scheme that probably wouldn't have even looked at me. The pandemic, you know, was a curse and a blessing.
Yeah.
And I was able to benefit hugely from the funding schemes available. But I do feel like outside of the pandemic, and now we're coming out of it, day by day, if there are funding schemes available, I wouldn't know where to start still. And I'm 5 years into a business.
Yeah.
So, and I do feel like funding does enable a business to grow and maximize its full potential. And I feel like I've not been able to do that, to be honest. The funding I applied for just took care of my overheads. It didn't take care of employing people. It didn't take care of having an permanent establishment for myself. You know, I'm in a hot desk working space.
Yeah.
So I can only have 2-3 people at a time. I can't have many different people helping me at once. Not that I have different people helping me, to be honest, but so I still feel like there are challenges and barriers there that I do need to overcome, and I have to let fear and pride not be in the way of that. But and
I think just the fact that you've started is like a good thing. It's the first step, and everything happens for a reason. Maybe it was meant to start in the pandemic. Maybe the pandemic was, I mean, I feel like as much as it's been horrible, everything happens for a reason, and I think it's really shaken up the way society and just the world in general like does things and the way it operates.
For sure.
Because I feel like we were still stuck in a ancient times, in a way, in an archaic time. Like things were too structured, but people live very busy, different, varied lifestyles. So now obviously with like working from home and like flexible hours, like that kind of encompasses all of that. So besides funding, what kind of struggles or obstacles would you say that you've been faced with whilst running your own business? Because again, we always see on Twitter and Instagram and any social media, entrepreneurship is very glorified. It's like, I want to work for myself. I don't want to do a 9 to 5, but I don't think people understand the amount of on the ground work and extra hours you have to do to actually make your business come into fruition. So what would you say your main kind of obstacles have been so far?
My main obstacles definitely, especially in such a fast-paced, snooty industry, is that I felt like I had imposter syndrome up until last year. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I was too young and inexperienced to be in an industry that has archaic values and, you know, sets the precedent of how one should act and communicate. So, for example, going to fashion parties, going to meetings, you know, I was 19 at the time, and I wasn't of a mature enough. I to be honest, I am pretty mature, but I felt like I wasn't mature enough to stand my, you know,
your ground.
My ground in an environment where people who saw you as different would act like you were different.
Right.
So yeah, I felt like being a black female, there wasn't much space for me, or the space wasn't allowed for me to take up space. Basically, just, you know, just take up space, and rightly take up space, because I felt like what I was doing was important, but that wasn't really enough. Feeling like I was doing something important wasn't enough. I had to be doing something important. And obviously, when you've just started a business, there are many infrastructures that you need to put in place to have your business seen as legitimate. And my business wasn't seen as legitimate to a lot of people. A lot of people wouldn't reply to emails. A lot of people would, you know, just not take my business seriously, take my model seriously, and they were great faces. So I do feel like there were boundaries in terms of what I had to offer. There were gatekeepers. There's gatekeepers in every sense, and I experienced that for sure. I felt like it was the time when my business was seen as something worth talking about was when small individual people who saw the beginnings of something good would want to interview me, would want to talk about it, would want to point out the fact that, okay, we've been talking about diversity and inclusivity, but who is actually doing that? You know, who is actually pushing that without it just being for show? Again, we talked about performative actions. And when people put the two and two together, there's a person of colour doing something that's for people of colour. There's a person of colour who's doing things for people who are underrepresented. Let's put her forward and talk about and show, you know, what needs to be done in a way that is prevalent to an industry that people look at so much and buy from so much and interact with every single day. You know, fashion is one of the biggest industries out there. So, yeah.
So you kind of spoke about, like, people not taking you seriously and, like, you wouldn't get responses and things sometimes. And I went to a webinar or a talk a few weeks ago. There was like a race equality week, so they had like loads of different talks going on. And one of the topics was like your name and like the importance of your name and how people need to get your name right and like how it means a lot of different things. So would you say, of course, like, you know, if you come from an ethnic minority background, a lot of the time, especially with your last name, it's kind of an indication that you're not British. So would you say that maybe that kind of contributed as well to you not getting responses, or do you just think people just didn't take you seriously because you wasn't established?
I felt like my mum was smart by choosing my name. I do feel like also that I would lean towards using Francesca only, for sure. I luckily now I have someone who works with me who's called Francesca, so I don't feel like I'm you know doing this undercover. But I do feel like I was scared to use Romany, for sure. People can be prejudiced when seeing something that's unfamiliar or foreign, like a name. So I definitely have experienced that. But I've overcome that now. And now when I use Romany, people are like, oh, that's a lovely name. I'm like, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It's really unique. I don't think I've ever met anyone called Romany before. And it is really sad that this is, again, another barrier, another layer, another level to what ethnic minorities are faced with. Because if you have an ethnic sounding name, then people are going to hold that against you. I mean, my name is quite white, I guess, because I'm Jamaican. So our last names are all English, right? Because it's Johnson, like my last name's Dixon. So it's like no one would, like if someone saw my name like on an email or something, they wouldn't necessarily assume I'm black. Because I have turned up to interviews sometimes and they're looking at me like, looking at my name, looking at me like, is that the right person? But it's like, yes, I mean. So yeah, the whole name thing I think is really sad though, that you felt that you had to like change your name. You had to hide that part of yourself just to kind of get by and actually have a look at and, you know, make people see you as important and as valuable, and the fact that what you're doing is so important. I have another question for you then. So the past you, Romany, that is 20 years old, is currently sitting where I'm sitting. What pieces of advice would you give her?
I would say don't doubt yourself. If you have a idea, you have a concept, run with it. It's something that's important to you. It will be 100% important to other people. You just have to find your community or tribe who vouch for the same things that you want to be important in society, in the city that you live in. And I feel like, you know, there are a lot of people, like I said earlier, that are gatekeepers, but they're not gatekeepers forever.
Right.
And there'll be definitely someone who will let you in. You just have to find that somebody, and you will find that somebody. And as the world progresses and the mindset changes, and social media, again, is something that's looked upon as important and a way of getting your voice out there, just think that time will really, really, really be the test of what's relevant now and what will be relevant in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
And what was relevant for me as a young person then wasn't relevant for other people, but now it is.
Yeah.
And now I've created a business that is thriving. People are, I get 20 applicants a day to be a model, minimum.
That's insane.
And I just think it's something that I'm so proud that I cried over, so proud that I laughed over.
Yeah.
Because all those emotions kept me going.
Yeah.
It made them real, and it made me feel like, okay, I'm doing something that has been hard, and without it being hard, I don't think I would have really persisted with it. If it was easy, I would have think, okay, well, done with that.
Yeah.
It's doing what it needs to do. Let me look at something else.
Yeah.
And if that had happened within the first year, I don't think I really would have concentrated on the fact that there needs to be change. I would have just been like, okay, models are getting booked, great.
Yeah.
So
going back to the kind of social media point then, again, done a little stalk of your Instagram. What kind of promotional techniques would you say that you use to get your brand out there? Did you hashtag? Did you reach out to influencers? Because there's so many different ways you can promote your business, and I think me, like, for example, I have like my own nail business as well, so it's the whole promotional side can be very, very difficult, and it's time consuming, and you have to be consistent and things. So when you was kind of starting out, when you didn't have as many models as you do now, what did you kind of do to get your name out there so people knew that you existed?
I think it was a variety of different techniques in which to get my business known, seen, appreciated enough to click that follow button. One would be, as a photographer, I like things to be aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
So having good enough material from the shoots that my models had been in allowed me to create a feed that people would come onto and think, oh, this is lovely.
Yeah.
So I definitely use an Instagram planner on the side to plan the content, make sure if there's key moments or key dates within history that need to be vocalized on a social media platform, I make sure that the content is reflective of that. I also think it's helpful to have your models repost my models repost the content that's being posted of them. So make sure that you use content if your business structure is based on showing what other people are doing or what you've done for other people, that it's the best content of them, so that they can repost it, people can come to your page. Instagram favor engagement such as saving an image into a folder or reposting it, sharing it, commenting. So all those things can help by people appreciating the content you're posting, whether it's of them or whether it's aesthetically pleasing. Also, I feel like there are these pages, like for example, you get business pages, dark-skinned women pages, sports pages that grew their followers ages ago, and they always like to see new little pages reposting content that they would want to post or repost. So it's good to have content that you think, okay, would one of these pages want to repost it?
Right.
Another thing that helped is, again, the power of influencers. That is a real power that they have, acquired. Yeah. So signing models for me that have been influencers has helped for sure, and them sharing it, them seeing Rare as a legitimate business, again, a legitimate agency, has helped because they want to advocate for that same ethos and championing something that is different from what other people are championing. Especially in an authentic way. What else would I say? I think those are the main ones, to be honest. Really stick to your concept, your idea. Like I said, why can't I talk? Like I said, if you have an idea that you think is important or that you think should be put out into the world, someone else will think it's important, someone else will see the value in what you're doing. Yeah. And therefore it will just grow organically. It might be slower, it might be faster, but just know that it will grow. You just have to be consistent, like you said. Yeah. And really, really maximize all the different platforms that are out there. TikTok, crazy.
You read my brain. I was just about to say TikTok.
Crazy. Their algorithm is getting harder. Yeah. as each platform will do, they will try to push and promote the people that gain them the most money. So consistency is key, making sure that you find your community, your tribe, who would appreciate the content you're putting out there. Stay on top of trends in a way that's authentic to you. And by which I mean, if you see a trend, use the same sounds, the same editing structure, but put your twist on it, and make sure that it's clear content, crisp content in terms of the video quality. People like to see something that's HD now. So
they want to see the pores on your face. They want to see everything.
They want to see everything. Not for, it doesn't, you know, rule doesn't apply to everybody, because there are people that do like that 90s vibe of, you know, soft, ideas, so but like I said, that goes back to finding your community. What do the people appreciate who would appreciate your content? So yeah, just maximize. I feel like making it as fun as possible, so it's not a chore. So having a structure for yourself where you already have the content and you think, okay, this is cool, I took this without even thinking, let me incorporate it, let me not, you know, think too tough about it. Just know that it needs to be done, and it needs to be done with content that you like and you appreciate. And if you like and appreciate it, it shouldn't be too much of a chore, because you want to put it out there. You want other people to like and appreciate it. Just like, that's why Tumblr, I think, got so big. People weren't thinking about a structure as I need to make money and I need to post this. They were thinking, I want to post this so that other people can see. And we can talk about it. We can like each other's work, and we can really have a great time sitting at home thinking, okay, I've seen someone who's the same as me. So, yeah, just take, you know, bring it a couple steps back and make it more basic. It doesn't have to be too complex, and then the money will come, and then you'll see your business grow in a way that makes you happy, because you've stayed true to yourself, and makes other people happy. You can't go wrong. I think the key takeaway from what you said is just being authentic and just being yourself, because brands that copy other brands, they don't last very long. Unless you're like a pretty little thing and you still, shade and you steal from small brands. But obviously they can do that, because they can just chuck 3 million, close the lawsuit, and that's that. But if you're starting out, it's so important that people actually can resonate with you, understand what your brand is, and understand who you are. Because actually a lot of the time, your brand and you, they're quite interchangeable, especially at the beginning, I feel. Or I feel like at any point it should be like that, which is why you see a lot of brands kind of lose their way. Massive example at the moment, Balenciaga is a luxury fashion brand. I feel because their creative director and everyone's changed, like they don't have like a running thread like through their brand DNA, which is why their image has changed so much. Not saying that's a bad thing, but a lot of people don't really understand the brand, because it's like, who actually are you? What are your beliefs? What are your values? So I think what you said about authenticity is like key to kind of success, really. And like you said, if it's a slow burn, it's a slow burner. Like, don't be put off by that. Never be. Greatness cannot be rushed. Literally. Greatness cannot be rushed. Honestly. If you want to be a sustainable brand, and I don't just mean environmentally, just actually being sustainable, sometimes you just got to go through the motions, and it will take time. But like what you said earlier about, if you didn't go through all those emotions and all those struggles and obstacles, then actually, A, you might not have appreciated the journey as much, and B, you might have moved on to something else, because it would have just come so easily for you. But Romany, I feel like our day is over today. I think that is all the questions I had for you. So thank you so much for coming on today. Shout out your social media so everyone can follow you. So how can people find you? My personal page, Romany Francesca, and my modelling agency at Rare Select Models. That was so hard for me to say, because I hate plugging myself. It's the pride thing coming through. But yes, follow Rare Select Models and follow me, Romany Francesca. Amazing. So thank you all once again for tuning in to another episode. I hope you have an amazing week. Make sure it's a productive one. As always, make sure you follow us on our social medias, which is at King's Careers on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook and Twitter. And with that being said, I will leave you all, and I will see you next week. See ya.